you're online, you do one of the hymns of the church. Come on, y'all. My hope. Is built on nothing. Hallelujah. In Jesus' blood. And righteous. Trust, not trust, the sweetest, yeah, that hold and lead, what you gonna lead on? Yeah, on Jesus. Jesus' name. When he shall come, when he shall come, what kind of sound? Yeah. Obey. It's all hymn of the church. Come on. Oh, yeah. On Christ. I wish I had some witnesses back there. What ground are you standing on? Yeah. Sinking. Anybody know that it's sinking? Yeah. Come on, moan with us. Come on. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, hey. Yeah. Come on, Charles.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. How you doing, Dr. Chris?
I'm great. How are you doing, sir?
Struggle, but listen, but I made it on. I made it on. I see your guest here. Good afternoon, man. We'll get you in just a moment. So I just want to welcome everyone, all of our viewers around the world. See, I'm going international now. I ain't gonna fool around. Yes, from around the world, we just want to welcome you And we're dealing with a very important subject matter, grief. And I think there's some misunderstanding about grief, and we've done this. I think this is our second shot at this, and we're going to be moving it along in a different direction or continued direction. So we're looking forward to this. Dr. Chris, I don't know what happened. I've been having some technical challenges, right? And so I've lost all kinds of things, and so I'm going to do something that is kind of not what I'm supposed to do. But I need you to just go ahead and just let the people give the people a little bit of background about you, and then I'll let you go ahead and introduce your guest, and then we'll kick it off from there and get the can moving down the road, and we'll do that. But this I must say about Dr. Chris: she's a wonderful person. Known her now for a few months. Very, very young, intelligent woman, very professional. She does have a PhD in psychology, and she earned every bit of it, because I can tell, because of the intensity and that with which she works and she speaks, and her knowledge base. Her knowledge base is very, very high, and so it's a pleasure to just have her on here with me whenever she's available. So with that, I'm just going to acquiesce to my folly and everything else like that, and just say, go ahead and just tell them whatever else you want to tell them, Doc, and then just introduce your guest to us, and then we're going to get it rolling.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me again. Yes. It's always an honor to talk to you, and definitely this is a very important topic. After our last conversation, I'm sure for you as well, just an overwhelming flow of questions coming in from individuals who are watching loved ones deal with grief and sincerely don't know what to do. And so the go-to thing for a lot of people, before therapy is Google, looking up symptoms, how can I help this loved one, trying to fix this. And thinking there is a fix, a quick fix at that. So it was just an overwhelming flow of questions and people reaching out, and just from really nationally, you say internationally, but I was getting people to reach out from California, and someone reached out from Colorado, and some people from Pennsylvania actually reached out, and it was just an overwhelming flow of, the fact that you chose this topic and just how it is such a manifesting, untalked about question and problem, and I even had some people specifically ask me about, the grieving process, how I help, with people trying to get quick fix answers while they had me on the phone. So it was bittersweet. It was great that, the topic is out there. It is in so many different angles being revolutionized as a conversation at the table now. That grief is real, is happening. It affects every family in some shape or form. And this was a very emotional week as well. My family personally was remembering the loss of one of my cousins who passed away in a car accident 17 years ago. And here we are 17 years later, and we still on her birthday do this, family or Facebook memorial in regards to my cousin Brittany. So, it's been an overwhelming week. Plus had a close friend lose their child 10 months old this week. And here we are talking about this topic. So it's going to be bittersweet. I'm going to try to keep it together because, this is an educational piece as well. And I'm just grateful that people are opening up to talk about grief versus feeling like it should be avoided. So thank you again for having me.
You're most welcome. Can you go? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And of course, we got a lot to talk about, and I know you have a lot to talk about. But can you just introduce your guest to us? And because I'm eager to hear her, to know her, and to just get right into this.
Absolutely. So this is Mrs. Dawn Robertson Walker. She is a clinician out of Pooler, Georgia. She is a sensational life coach as well. She's been in mental health, almost 10 years now, probably longer. But also she specialized in relationship, life coaching, grief. She does a lot in the Chatham County, Georgia community with AIDS and HIV patients. Just life transitional. She's just an amazing person to know, and I'm really honored to have her on the show today.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Did you say her name is Dawn, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Doc. Listen, Dawn. Listen. What else would you like to tell? Would you like to tell the people? Just talk up yourself so that we can get on the road, so people know that they're dealing with some three real McCoys right here. Okay.
Yeah. If you know love, you will surely know sorrow.
Ooh.
I want to share. If you know love, you will surely know sorrow, because it's bittersweet. It feels the same way. So, grief, it continues. It will continue to the day you die. You just learn how to cope with it.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Let me just say that I think there is some misunderstanding about grief. I think for the most part, a lot of people have this undying attachment between grief and death.
Mm-hmm.
When the issue of grief is, at the core of grief is loss.
Yes.
And basically what you were saying is what I'm going to say in another way. The deeper and the more endearing the attachment, the deeper the grief related to the loss and the pain because of the unavailability of that person and what that person means to the quality of your life.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not, I was doing some what we call premarital counseling, and I told them that they need to grieve their upcoming loss of being single.
Yes.
Wow. It's amazing you said that, because I tell people all the time that, to love, eventually one of you are going, especially when I do premarital counseling with people, that there is going to come the inevitable that, someday you will have to say goodbye to someone that you love. And, they don't want to think about that right now, but I purposely add that as a part of the counseling piece. I go in hard when I do premarital counseling with couples, and we talk about everything, like everything from your expectations of one another. What are you going to require from one another to know that we're still functioning as partners, as lovers, as friends, that our relationship is healthy. I also talk about the understanding of separation and how you can grieve even within the marriage itself. People assume that separation is you get out of the house or the other person leaves the house. No, you can separate within the marriage. And that desire to, I want to walk up and hug them. I want to walk up and kiss them. I want to say, I'm sorry. That is a very unique level of grief. So I always hit home and say, do you think that this love is going to be so deep? Because we change. Who we married today, 10 years from now, we're not going to be the same person. We shouldn't even be the same person, to be honest. We should grow, and you can't prepare for growth. Again, it happens when it happens. However, preparing and understanding that end of life is going to happen. The end of the relationship is going to happen. It is inevitable. Do you think you would grieve? Do you understand what grief is? And some people will, some are open to talk about it and some are not, because I even will talk about, obtaining insurance or how you prepare financially as husband and wife, or however the dynamic of the relationship is. And some people don't even want to talk about getting life insurance because they're not ready to accept that really we're just getting married and you're talking about death already. Yeah, you need to talk about this, because this is, again, preparing for something in your future, which could inevitably happen, sadly, a week after you get married, let alone 50 years into your marriage. But even some parents don't have insurance on their children because they don't even want to talk about the fact that they could lose a child. And you and I have talked, that grief has many, many faces. It's not just the loss of life for someone. It manifests in different ways throughout a person's life.
Right. Right. So let me just say this here, and Dawn, I want you to jump in on this one too. Jump in anywhere, really. But recently we had somebody who is a male who came down with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a lot of shifting going on within the family, biopsychosocially, but more so at the emotional level. There's a lot of shifting because there was so many unknowns based on what was known, like roles that people would play. And we settle in our lives based on the expectation that certain people will do certain things at certain time, and I get to feel the way I want to feel. Absent of that, I get to go into this flux that I don't have a clue where I'm going to head. So with that, what I'm talking about here, and I want us to talk about this, it's what I call the symptom bearer. How the symptom bearer goes through grief, and how the symptom sharer goes through grief. Because the symptom bearer's grief is related to the self. The symptom sharer's grief is related to the quality of the relationship between them and the other person. So let's talk about that. Whoever want to jump in first, I want to hear from both of you on that.
I don't want to dominate here. I want all of us to have, but this is very important.
Listen, Dawn, you're going to discover, Dawn, that in here you got to scrap to get in.
Jump in. We can go back to, I have a very small, a very small home health agency. And there were times where we would have to have that unfortunate conversation in preparing for hospice, the transfer of care. And automatically you just see the emotions, the understanding that hospice means we're about to lose our loved one. And some people couldn't cope. Some people would walk out. Grief sets in immediately. And, we have to have that conversation, of course, with the patient and explain to the patient that we have to prepare for hospice. And we have to have those uncomfortable conversations, of course, where we're talking about, is there a living will? Mm-hmm. Is there DNR? Mm-hmm. And I remember personally being cursed out by a son of a patient when I asked his mom, is there a DNR that we need to have on file? Mm-hmm. And he just went in. He was like, you don't talk to my mother like that. And she's of sound mind. It's just that her cancer had just manifested to the point where it was bad. She was looking at weeks of life left, and she was in so much pain. But how he came at me, he said, you do not ask my mother that. You don't talk to her about that. You talk to me. But there was no POA. So I had to talk to the patient, who again was very much in sound mind. And, in that moment, you feel that person's hurt. Transference is very real. He is not willing to accept. You see the stages of grief, that is manifesting here. And then the look on this patient's face is that I can't help my child from his pain. Like, she's witnessed this play out in living color. The only thing she could do is take this conversation. And of course, he came up later and he apologized. And of course, the family tried to apologize on his behalf. And I said, no, you cannot take his voice. He had the right to grieve out loud. And a lot of people don't know how to, accept that when someone is grieving out loud. And I let him have it. I was not going to interrupt him. I was not going to take away his voice. I wasn't going to definitely say, you need to calm down, because this is his mother. And this is an uncomfortable conversation. And it was so many things manifesting in that moment with him and his mother, and just the looks that they were giving each other, so he was trying to invoke some of her pain, but he couldn't, because he was automatically going through that. And then as a mother who is watching her child hurt, all she could do is lay there and cry. So it's very emotional, and hopefully this kind of hits home to what you're talking about, Dr. Kitson. But when people are grieving, there is no way to paint the picture for how they're grieving, or even how we're going to take on that hurt. I saw it in my own personal life, as I've shared, in several conversations with you, how my husband is trying to comfort me, trying to take away some of what I was going through at that time, and he couldn't. And I pushed him away, which hurts him even more. So much happens when the form of grief kind of kicks into a person's life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dawn, go ahead.
Oh yeah. There's so many, when Dr. Falcon spoke of handling a situation which it was hospice. I can remember also just briefly a patient being told the diagnosis of that she was HIV positive, and how she suddenly just said, "I'm dying." And I had to really get in there and give her the pre-counseling and post-counseling that HIV isn't death, and but she automatically just grabbed onto, "I'm gonna die." And so and that's hard, because that's what you put the two and two together, that is death. And so I think a lot of people think that too, sometimes, even with the cancer diagnosis, this is death. Let me hurry up. I'm getting ready to die, or I don't care about anything. At this point, she stated, I didn't care about anything. And so I had to really counsel her and really give her the resources through my counseling, and to let her know this is not a death sentence, that you can begin to live. Let's live. You're living with being HIV positive, not I'm dying, And so, that's what I had to really do. And with myself, my parents are both deceased, and they always would talk, and it's an avoidance thing, but they always would talk openly. I mean, they bought their grave sites probably 30 years before they passed away, and everybody does not think to do that, and had their funeral programs already written. And I always say those are action. Those help me to prepare, because you have to prepare. You have to prepare. And you have to prepare. I didn't want to prepare, but you have to prepare. But making those things, I think, kind of jumping to something else, making those things in place for the family makes it so much easier for the family. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to grieve just because they know everything, but it puts the puzzles together, and have at least that part is not, you're going through that grief and finding a gravesite, or potentially buying the casket or what have you, but to put those things in place.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me just kind of push this a little further, though. I think both of you kind of hit on it, and that is this. I know, Dr. Chris, you certainly hit on it with this this mother with cancer and the son. The quality of the attachment. Here's another word that goes along with the quality of attachment. The quality of attachment and the quality of dependency on the person. Because the degree to which you depend on the person is a degree to which you don't have to depend on yourself. So when that person is no longer available, it then evoke either my sense of helplessness, hopelessness. Who's going to do this for me? My life will change. And so now the way I used to enjoy my life, I can't do that, because this person here, laying here, is sick or passed away, that means that I now have to reorganize my life from the inside out.
Yes.
So now we find ourselves saying, wait a minute. In essence, this person here at some level becomes a piece of me, a part of me that's living outside of me that won't be available to me in a little while.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
We
hit on this the first time we talked about grief, how the moment we are born, we have the instinct to attach, and for most of us, we attach in the womb. And if I'm not mistaken, I hit on the fact that when it comes to really attachment and loss, especially in human relationships and how we secure attachment, it very much matters. As clinicians, we do need to have this understanding that you pointed out, that attachment, is this perspective that gives us this great way to kind of conceptualize and approach the pain of grief and loss with our clients. Just because we do this work, it doesn't mean that we haven't endured some level of grief or loss ourselves, and thinking about that baby that is definitely in the womb, and it comes into this world and just gasping for air, and we just want to wrap this baby up, and we instantly now doctors do the skin to skin touch, so that the babies can even adapt to the warmth or the scent of their parents. So the doctors is helping this child to develop this attachment, and this child, as it grows, we as the parents, we know that the child needs to be held, needs to be touched, needs to be nurtured physically, emotionally, so it can grow. But as human beings, as we continue to grow, we autonomously want to become independent. We see this with our children when they're turning 14 and they're like, I can get a work permit. 15, I can prepare for my driver's license permit, get my license, I can grow, so they still want a level of independence, but attachment has definitely happened, and we carry this very intimate desire of attachment through our whole life. We do. So, what helps us to survive and even to develop relationships, it drives us to even seek out a partner and marriage, because we still have a level of wanting to be attached to someone. We're programmed to attach,
right.
In a sense. So when we lose something, whether it's a divorce, whether it is a true death, whether it is even attachment to money, we grieve. And the experience of a loss, or basically really, if we just single out the fact of death, the person who is grieving is absolutely going to be faced with this broken attachment that they had no choice in. Also, they're going to face the pain, the struggle from detaching from that person. You can't prepare for this. This is immediately a swift change in that person's reality. And we know that there's a process to adapt. There's a process to unadapt or attach to a person. And, we have, again, from the womb throughout our whole life to develop this relationship. And then in the blink of an eye, it's gone.
Right.
So, yeah.
So let me say, I think as clinicians, we put ourselves in a very stressful place. And here it is. So here's a real-time question for all three of us, okay? What do we do when the client, patient that we are working with, okay, presents a situation to us that evokes in us some kind of a loss or anxiety, call it what you will, that we have not yet finished completely working through? And I'm saying then we have to be careful of our countertransference. So the question is, and this is for us because we really don't have any business going out there talking to people about grief unless we have dealt with it here. And the possibility of how do I respond, not to a loss, but when somebody says something that evokes a memory in me about a loss that I've been trying to dig, that I've been trying to bury for a long time. So let's all three of us kind of just talk about that here for a minute, because then I think it's important for us to do that. Then the people who are listening to us can get an idea. Wait a minute, we know that we got to go through this stuff before inside of here, before we can go out there and start to talk with them, so they know we're genuine. Okay.
Yeah. I had to once I lost my mother, I stated initially, I cannot work with grief patients right now, grief clientele right now, because it was so much going on. It was a hit, it was a trauma. She passed away in her sleep, so it wasn't anything I was even able to. It's like I talked on the phone with her at 12 that night. At 5, I get the call from my father. She's gone. She passed away in her sleep. So, oh boy, it's so many emotions. So now working with through therapy, so important. People get therapy before you get out on a limb helping other clientele in grief. But I have had to, you have to switch. I can't even explain how I do this, but I'm going to explain to the best of my knowledge. But I really have had to switch and empower through my healing, the clientele's healing, or giving the clientele a little bit of hope, because I can sit in on the other side and say, I understand what that client is feeling. So you really have to really listen. You really have to, you can't put any of your feelings when you're trying to, because you do no harm to that client. And you really have to begin to encourage and empower them through your words, through affirmations, and through allowing them to just talk, but allowing them to also, you can do some self-disclosure here and there about your own experience.
I think that's going to be the biggest key, Mrs. Walker, is to definitely let them know that you're just as much of a human as they are, and that you have gone through the process of grief. I'm very open about, especially when I'm working with someone on grief that I have lost, not only to have lost, but, to go through in a very unhealthy way at times, my own grief. From losing things in the past. I explained to them, I still grieve for my great grandmother. She was 104 when she passed away. Okay. Who can say that they knew their great grandmother that long, right? It doesn't change the fact that, I still am not going to grieve the loss of this wonderful person. And, as we all are therapists, we are clinicians, I've learned from being a former speaker. I really pulled away from speaking about certain things, and grief was one, and working in this field to helping people through the grieving process and bereavement. It does feel daunting at times. And there is no way for us to bring back what is lost. And it goes back to what I said earlier, that some people want this magic sentence to help them feel better. They want this magic therapy session, in 60 minutes, especially when they've been grieving for years. And I use that mathematical equation with them. You have to weigh how long you have been grieving. And when we meet, and especially if it's out on our third session, we've met 45 minutes to an hour max. So in 3 hours, I was supposed to fix 10, 15 years of grieving. There's no possible way to do that. As a clinician, or especially me personally, I try to provide comfort to the survivor, and some help them to understand that this intense pain that they see in themselves, or that we see, they're going to feel helpless at times. Even on a good day, at the end of that day, they could relapse and start feeling emotional pain or sadness. And it's very natural to grieve, and that they should not silence themselves, and that they should grieve out loud and openly, but they do need someone to help them navigate through the process. And I personally find that a lot of people want me to fix their pain, to heal their pain when they're grieving. And that's why they come to therapy. So I have to kind of shut down that misconception immediately and let them know, I can't fix this, but together we can learn coping mechanisms to help you navigate it in a different way, so that you can learn to not only live with the understanding that this person is no longer there, or the situation or the marriage or whatever they've lost has happened. And, especially when they bring some mental health disorders that they have adapted to grieving, hoarding has become a major one. I see it a lot in people who are grieving. They make this corner shrine of this person who's died, and everything that they've touched, slept on, their perfume, their lipstick, their whatever is in this corner, or they collect other things. So, as clinicians, we're kind of in a conundrum. We really are, in a sense, because we can't fix it immediately as they want. We have to break down that this is a process. You've been going through it already. I'm just going to slide in to try to help you navigate it differently. Also, we may have to have, help them through the mental health disorders that they now have as a result of their grieving. So it's we can only deal with it on a case-by-case basis, to be honest.
And to understand, Dr. Kitson and Dr. Falcon, there are no rules in grieving.
There is not.
There are no rules. I also stress that you will go through grief ambushes. And when I say a grief ambush, let's just say Mother's Day. I can remember walking through Kroger's, looking at the Hallmark cards, Happy Mother's Day. And I looked and I became angry. How dare they must have never thought that you would be without a mother on Mother's Day. Why would somebody celebrate Mother's Day without having that mother there? You go through those, and those grief ambushes and attacks can catch you at any time. And so it's okay. I tell my clients, cry. Cry is so therapeutic. Cry.
I say go ahead and ugly cry. Just let it out.
I remember it was about 2 years ago when I, my brother, he died suddenly. He's in another state, and it was kind of ooh, really? And then there's this client that came in, I took this client on, and he's telling me about his attachment to his brother. It was almost like a symbiosis. That's how close they were, And I had to tell him, at one point, I just had to really tell him that. I said, look, if I behave in a way that makes you think I'm being unprofessional, or, your story is evoking in me my unfinished loss of my brother. That changed everything. Because now he saw in me a piece of himself that could understand the loss of his brother through my loss of my brother. And it's amazing. So here again, this self-revelation, revealing the self is a way for us to attach ourselves to people so that they can see it, so we can understand the attachment that they have with their losses. I remember that a few years ago it was a military family, and so Dr. Chris, you kind of aware of this, some stuff like this, because I want us to kind of get into where do people go, not physically go, but where do they go, like here? So and Dawn, you mentioned this word anger, so I'm going to tie that in.
Okay.
So where do people go? And so this couple, they got married when they were really young, and then her husband decided that he wanted to go into the military. And she didn't want him to go into the military. But he came from a military family. Grandfather, father, uncles, everybody's in the military somewhere, So he said, hey, I got to go in the military. That's what we do. And he went in and he was deployed, and, he was a victim of IED and he lost a limb. Before he went, they would go skiing, play tennis, they do all this. You know, they were preparing for their first child when he returned. They would do all these great things, camping. They do 5K and 3K runs, everything like that. And then he came back, and his loss of limb robbed her of, we don't go skiing, we don't go snowboarding, we don't play tennis, we don't ride our bicycle, we don't ride all of these things. Systemically, any place within the system where there is a disruption disrupts the entire system. So now what happened here is, because of that, she lost all of that. She was very angry with him. So now forgiveness became an issue. You know what I'm saying? And so therefore, how are you going to work through grief when anger is playing a major role? How are you going to work through forgiveness when anger and grief and forgiveness is playing a major role in the grief part? So when he came home, and not only did he lose a limb, now he's just lost his wife, because his wife pulled back away from him. You follow what I'm saying, right? So one loss created multiple systemic and layers of losses. Because now he was hoping to come home to a wife that would embrace what's, the remaining part of himself. But he didn't get that. He got anger because she said, I told you not to. And now I can't get to do all the things that we did or we planned to do. There are people out there. So what happens when people begin to go through that level of loss? Where are they, and what do we take them through? And how can we help them through this systemic menagerie of issues and stuff that comes up?
I see this a lot. I recently began working with the Wounded Warrior Project.
Okay.
And I, when I was first reached out upon, they wanted someone who specifically worked with PTSD that affects the family.
Right.
And, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's fine. But what about the veteran, the soldier themselves? So shame on me. I instantly disregarded what they were reaching out for, right? Because I wanted to see, I'm so used to, and I'm conditioned to deal with the soldier or the veteran themselves. And, as I talked to Mrs. Huffines of the Wounded Warrior Project, she broke down the scenario of this particular guy months ago. And she said, we're only going to approve three hours. I said, whoa, 3 hours. Wait a minute. She said, well, just to see how he does. I said, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not enough, because it takes 5 hours to build a rapport, break some ice,
right.
Break down,
right.
sometimes break
right.
down the entire iceberg, right?
Yeah.
And so the first meeting with this person, he did bring his spouse, and this gentleman had lost his complete vision. So it wasn't just an arm or a leg. He lost his complete vision. And I'm listening to him, and his wife is like, I've had to take on the response. She's breaking down all these extra responsibilities that she took on. So I took them way back to a point that a lot of couples fail to realize is the most important part of becoming husband and wife. And it's not even the courtship. It is the day that you guys went down to that courthouse and you filled out the application to apply for the marriage license itself. And I always ask couples, did you read that application? Because it was an application. Yeah. Did you read it, or did you just fill in the blanks where the clerk of court just highlighted it? And they looked at each other, whatnot. He kind of turned to where he was hearing her, and she's looking at him, and she's like, I don't even remember filling out an application. And I said, I'm sure you did. I'm very sure you did. I said, because there's a very small box on there that said you are deciding to become one. You're deciding to become a legal entity. And I said, of course, the wedding vows happened and they were beautiful. And you said them before your friends and loved ones, etc. I said, but you made that commitment to each other before you even had a marriage, before you said those vows. When you filled out that application, you decided to become one right then and there. And that's even more so than the ring, because, you know, we can throw off rings and throw them in the ocean or whatever at any point. But when you fill out the application, this is really solidifying this thing. The license is just notarizing it. That's it. So I, you know, when I go over that part with them, I said, you became one with this man. So whatever pain he's going through, you should automatically feel it. Whatever complaint he gives you, you should automatically be willing to listen to it. His world has forever changed. He went from being this physically fit, young, able-bodied man, ready to serve his country, take care of his family, be a man to his woman. And now he comes back not even feeling like a man. And here you are complaining. I said, when you complain, and you kind of have to throw it back at them, like before you complain or while you're complaining, what do you think is happening in his mind? Because this is going to tell me how you really have became one with this man. And, you know, they do feel guilty. And sadly, you do kind of make them feel it. Yeah. Because he's already going through things. His vision is gone. Suicide ideation is very real. And sadly, in 72% of cases where they lose that arm, that leg, their vision, their complete hearing, that's an immediate thought. So it is so many things to truly be considered here, because he's grieving in a totally different way than she is. So we got these two people, you know, there's a confusion about how they love each other now. There has been one loss, and that's vision, but that has forever changed the dynamic of the reality of their marriage. So they have to learn how to find their way, not only back to each other after this loss, but learn how to solidify their relationship again with a new approach to their now reality, because it is changed.
All right. Dawn, go ahead.
I just want to state an example of trying to find your way back. On Mother's Day, I can remember with myself, and some people can relate, I have always spent every Mother's Day with my mother, forgetting about I was a mother, you know, at the time during some part of my mother's life. And with that first Mother's Day without your mother, it can be very depressing. But for me, it was like, what do I do? And I had my daughter tell me, Mama, you a mother too. And so that was where the eye opener. I said, what do I do? Do I just lay in the bed all day and totally avoid? Which was my thing. I know so too well. Was my best friend was avoidance. And some of you know about that. But I'm still gonna have to celebrate without my mother someday. So right. Celebrating with her, wearing the perfume I still have from the bottle, and honoring her in those ways. It's still, she's just the spirit, and her body is not there, but the spirit of her is still there. Because you have to learn how do I now live without that person? Or and even in divorce, how do I get married? I think that, and I've experienced that also. I think that this person, we're going to be together forever. Now, how do I do? Now I'm a single mother. Now everything is back to me. If I don't get it done, it won't get done. So you have to become very creative. And take a new focus. I always tell my clients, now you have to take a new focus. Take a new focus.
And I'm glad you went there, because even though my first marriage was brief, you know, it there's a, you know, one of the stages of grief, the 5 stages, that it doesn't present that with that type of loss. There's a shame that comes with it. That, gosh, I couldn't make this marriage work. I couldn't keep this, or I just want it out. But there, even if you choose to get out, there's still a shame that comes with it. So you can't even grieve without worrying about the level of shame that, you know, family throws at you, friends throw at you, those comments of, oh, but you guys seem so perfect for each other, or you look so good together.
Right.
That's a shell. That's absolutely a shell. You know, so you even though it may be the best decision to get a divorce, you know, for it was for the safety, you know, of you and your well-being to get a divorce. Even if it's the safety of your well-being of leaving a job, because I've had people grieve being pushed out of a job because they were sabotaged or emotionally bullied, and they beat themselves up. Like, I could have taken it, I could have handled it, and they grieve this loss of things. So grief has such a manifesting way, but it can be very blinding to people who watch you go through, but it can also be blinding to yourself.
Right.
Yeah. You know, we have about 9 minutes left, and then so there are a couple of things I want to say. And this, you know, something you said, you know, Dr. Chris, that is, and it came to me that this is me talking about me. The degree to which I'm effective with my clients, no matter what it is I'm doing, okay? Mm-hmm. It is my degree, the degree to which I can take ownership of the part of me that's taking ownership of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You know, because if I can't take ownership of, and I'm not talking about a rescue fantasy now. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'm talking about a therapeutic alliance that we have to have. Mm-hmm. The development, you talked about it, Dr. Chris, takes time. 3 sessions won't do it. You know, it's got to take a whole lot. Why? But there are all kinds of things and it doesn't mean that you're not effective. It may mean that there's something about them that's not making it work with them, with you and them. You know, so we have to go down through all of these things. So yeah, there's a part of me that if I'm not willing to work on that in me, I can't work on that in the client. But listen, let's take the last 8 minutes or so, 7 minutes now, and let's talk about this one word here. And without this, grief will be aborted. Without this process, grief is just theoretical. And the word is acceptance. Mm-hmm. Acceptance. Accept that which you don't want to accept. But if you don't accept it, the act of not accepting it is to accept it. Why? Because you cannot accept something that you're not aware of. And in order for you to say, I'm not going to accept it, you're aware of it, therefore you accept it, but you're trying to do what? Distance yourself from that. I'm going to let both of you have about 3 minutes each, and then we got to close it down. Go ahead.
It is so important. That is the breakthrough word you just said.
Yes.
Acceptance. I was the avoider. I did not want to go out to the gravesite. I refused to go home because my parents lived in Augusta. I refused to go home until my acceptance, and everybody's acceptance, I will say, happens at a different time.
Right.
My acceptance was going to that gravesite, taking in that my parents are gone, taking in that this is their other resting place, and now carrying on their legacy.
Right.
So everybody acceptance, I took a big swallow when you said that. And that was big because, boy, it took a while for me to accept.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't want to deal with, because if I accept it, guess what I say? I don't have to deal with it. If I don't accept it, I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to cry. I don't have to take in the anger. I don't have to, know that they're not present when I call on the phone. And I even kept the voicemail forever. So it is so important, but it's a journey to get there. But when you get there and you embrace it, then you can begin the healing.
Yeah. Thank you. Hey, listen, you just said some stuff there. You really did say some stuff there. Yes, it is different for all of us. And let me just say this before you say something, Dr. Chris. While you know, people don't grieve, they go through grieving. So it's a journey. And acceptance, you have to go from one place to another. And it's not accepting the thing outside of you, it's accepting the self, accepting what's going on, right? This is it. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Chris.
Yeah, she hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the people that are listening to understand that we all three here are clinicians and we are still grieving something. And just understanding that, you know, we definitely can humanize with our clients. You know, I think acceptance is often confused with the notion that, you know, of being, you know, all right or okay with what is happening. And this isn't the case at all. You know, most people don't even feel okay or right about the loss of a loved one. You know, this stage of acceptance, you know, it's a reality that our loved one is physically gone. And it is a struggle to recognize that this is actually not just a new reality, but it's a permanent reality. And we'll never like this reality or make it okay. But, you know, eventually, you know, we have to accept it. You know, we can learn to live with it. You know, we can learn to adapt to this new norm that we must learn to live within. But, you know, we must try to live with the now in the world that our loved one is missing. And, you know, in resisting this new norm, and I see this a lot in people, you know, at first, many people will want to maintain a life as if they did before the loved one died. In time, through bits and pieces of the word acceptance, you know, however, we see that we cannot maintain this past intact. And it has forever been changed, and we must readjust to this change. So it's very important that we learn to recognize the roles, reassign them to other people, take them on for ourselves, get therapy. You know, I believe in therapy. I still will attend therapy if things get hard. I'm very open about that. But, you know, finding acceptance may just be having one good day at a time versus all the many bad ones, learning to begin to live again, to enjoy life without that person, even if they feel guilt that they're going on and this person is not here to, you know, enjoy life as we are. We may feel like we're even betraying them. We can never replace them. And it's very important for people to understand, even if, you know, if a spouse loses a spouse and they want to love again, that guilt kicks in. Right. You know, am I replacing my wife or my husband, you know, making this new connection, you know, but it's okay to learn to be in another meaningful relationship because we are designed to be in twos. Right. We are. So I guess, you know, in closing, in denying that we need to accept it, denying that we need to listen to our needs, and denying that we need to grasp understanding to evolve, we won't grow and we won't adapt to this new norm or even approach growth, because there, you know, even though it's hurtful, there's still lessons to learn, especially about love when we lose someone. Okay.
All right. Listen, let me just say this before I make my closing comments. Would you both, if you're comfortable giving out your emails so people can reach you, if you're not, that's fine. Okay, would you go ahead real quick? We got a minute left and then the countdown is going to start. Go ahead.
Okay, my email is @AOL.com.
Okay.
And mine is, and I put it in the chat, tpmhelpers@gmail.com.
All right. And you can reach me at kfrancis@fccounselingservice.com. I just want to thank both of you. We don't have enough time to do what we need to do. Oh. But this is the reason why we must continue to do this. You know, we're living in not post-COVID, we're in the middle of the deep end of COVID, like right now. And so many people have lost their identity. You know why a lot of people have lost their identity? Because for them, the beauty of their face has now been covered. The mask has stolen our identity. Right. You know?
Right.
So it's an amazing thing. But I just want to thank you all so much. Thank you so much. And we're going to continue to do this because there's a lot of stuff that have to do with grief. the next phase of this is to begin to shift into walking clients through the phases. There's a William Warden. He has a 4-step grief process, and Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she has a 5-step, and her last step is his first step. You know, which is acceptance, right? So you kind of okay. So we need to be able to walk some people through these things, because as they're going through this, the dynamics of going through this, you know, can be really tough on them. Be really, really tough on them. Okay, and there may be this guilt and you know all this kind of stuff, wondering whether they're doing it right. Well, there is no right way to do this thing, you know. So we need to be able to talk them through that. And I look forward to you know, to doing more of this. So thank you both so much. All right. And I want to thank all of you that's out there that's been listening, that's been watching us. Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Kid Speaks, where you always learn more about yourself in the dark than you do in the light. Because we take you so deep. We take you so deep, okay? So tune in again. We'll put it out there again, and it's normally on the first Sunday of every month. We will be bringing another episode to you. First Sunday every month, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Time. 1 Central Time, okay? So tell your friends, put it in your chats. Share, do whatever you need to do, you know, put it in a balloon and let it go up. Paint it on the side of your car. I don't know what you do. You know? Okay. So thank you all so much. Dr. Chris and Don, it was my pleasure. Good meeting you, Don. Good to see you again, Dr. Chris. And you all have yourself a wonderful day, okay?
Yes,
it's not over. We're just starting this thing up, okay?
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.